Welcome everyone. It's Rochelle Wilhite and Jerry K. LaRue. We are both managing brokers with Best Choice Realty, and we're going to be going over how to look at the offers when there are multiple and how to decide with your seller which one you're going to go with, discussing the pros and the cons, and then we will actually finish up the session with using Transaction Desk to go ahead and get mutual acceptance. So stay with us. We're going to go through it fairly quickly. And if you have questions, you can certainly reach out to us after the session. But we'll go through it fairly quickly and make sure we cover all the key points. We are using the new contracts that were launched earlier in March of 2021. And we've received 3 offers. So this is an actual scenario. So welcome, Jerry K. Looks like you've got one of the offers on the screen here. You want to go through kind of what you see with the 3 offers? Let's start with the first one that came through.
Okay, so yeah, we did get 3 offers. It looks like we got a cash offer, a financed offer, and then one with escalation. So we'll go through each of those. This one looks to appear to be the escalation clause. Of course, I got this in my email that it said it had an escalation, but if you see here, it's missing the 35E down here. So that could have been a detriment to them if I was not being diligent and looking through all the pages. But so this one's $440 purchase price with $15,000 earnest money. And they appear to be all similar in closing date, which we'll go through each one aside from the cash offer. That one's going to close early.
Okay.
So this one has an appraisal contingency with increased down payment. And they start off at $440, and you can see they didn't ask for any fire credits. They're putting $50,000 down with increased down of $20,000. So here's their escalation. It goes in increments of $5,000 up to $480,500. So that's a really good offer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see, look through here. They waived their inspection on the new 35W. So that was great. Here's the appraisal addendum. So instead of using the 22A, so they're pretty much waiving financing except for they want this appraisal addendum. And looks like they're going to be attempting to get the appraisal in very quickly because they've given themselves 7 days that if they don't give us notice of low appraisal, that it's waived in 7 days. So either they're planning on just waiving appraisal, or they have an in with a lender that can get this done really fast.
Yeah, and we had the lender call. That was the lender that called us earlier, Jerry K. Sam Sentioli at Movement. He called and confirmed that they do have the funds on this one. So
wow, that's perfect. So 50% down too, plus additional 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really good offer.
Okay.
So there's that one.
So this would probably, when we looked at all 3, was this the best offer, you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think that if we're going to use this escalation, because the other 2 didn't have escalations. Okay. You know, oftentimes we look at these cash offers and think that they're the best, but not always so, right?
No, it's not always like that. Is this the cash offer that we're looking at, 445?
Yeah, this is the cash offer. So they're putting $445,000 in cash with $20,000 earnest money.
Mm-hmm.
The closing date, all the rest of them are in April. This one's 3/24. So, I mean, that's great and everything, but
still have a mortgage, so that would maybe save us a mortgage payment then, if I was the seller.
Maybe, yeah, 1 month. So you might want to look at that.
So my mortgage payment, I think, is around $2,500.
Okay. And I believe they have an inspection though. So we don't know what we're up against with what repairs they might be asking for. So it could be even more.
Mm-hmm. I think this was the one that was just 1 day though. They did a 1-day inspection.
1 day inspection.
Yeah. Did they have an inspector that do we know what inspector they wanted to use?
I don't know who they're using, but yeah, they must have them all lined up already.
Okay. Well, that's pretty compelling to have it be cash.
It's cash, and then if they ask for additional time, it's only one day.
Okay.
So they must have, I don't, they must have some good contacts with specialists, so.
What's the chances that they'll ask for a price reduction or, you know, ask for repairs? Do you think that they will?
I would hope not in this market.
Okay.
But we don't know, right? I mean, I really don't know. It's if they will, but there's a chance. So that's the chance they're taking. The one day timelines, that makes it feel like they probably won't, but man, I don't really know, you know.
Okay. So yeah, so 445, but then the other one, so then does it look like I can sell it for, what's the other, well, there's a third one, wasn't there?
We have a third one.
Okay.
Let's see if my header here will let me share. So here's our third one. So it's 455.
Okay.
So we had 440, 445, and this one's 455.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
lower earnest money down than the other two.
Okay.
Closes in April. They have increased down. They have financing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're waiving their inspection. So they use that 35W, which is great. So let's go take a look. Yeah, 22D, love to see that in the file. Looks like all the selling agents are each giving home warranties, that's great. Oh, there was a pre-inspection. So they waived inspection. Actually, they did a pre-inspection, and they're only asking for earthquake straps. So we would have had to do that anyway. So that's really
Okay.
nothing actually. So that's great. But they're only putting 5% down. So they're not putting as much skin in the game,
Okay.
but they're ready to, they'll apply within a day. So that's good.
Maybe cash is
Automatic waiver of financing.
15 days on that.
15 days, and appraisal less than sales price is will not. So they're not waiving the negotiations for the appraisal if it comes in low.
So the first offer we looked at was better because it was not contingent on financing, right? It was just a contingent appraisal.
Yep.
Did this one have the additional down as well?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So they're not asking for any seller paid closing costs, which none of them did. So that's the same.
Okay.
And this one's 20,000 down, just like the escalation offer.
Okay.
So yeah. So they all look really good. Now, I know I've done some pre-calculations for this in anticipation of reviewing these three offers. So I would use the financed offer at 455, which they sent us a love letter to.
Okay.
Which was nice. Cute little love letter.
All right.
So I would use this one to use to escalate the other one.
Okay.
So keeping in mind that we have 455, so that's their highest. They didn't have an escalation clause in there, so that is their highest of the competing offer.
Okay.
And they didn't have any seller paid closing costs, and they also didn't offer to pay any of the seller's credits. So now you know that's new now. That we can offer to pay some of the seller's closing costs, but they didn't offer to do that. So this is pretty straight. This is just
okay. So
the net purchase price on this is 455.
This is the one they did the pre-inspection, that cute couple.
Yep.
So I'm saying no to them, huh?
Well, it's possible. Let's go back here and look at the escalation. So just to verify that they didn't ask. So 440. Okay. So with no 22A, there was no buyer credits to buyer for closing costs. Nothing in here we have to worry about. And I still love they're putting 50% down. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, the lender, said they might get an appraisal waiver, but he wasn't sure.
Okay.
And when I talked to the real estate broker, she was like, yeah, there's I think they had to put, the client was a little bit concerned about how crazy it is right now,
Yeah,
and went ahead and included that appraisal addendum just to give that buyer's comfort. So that's why they use the 22 AA.
sure. Well, and of course, they put increased down, so they had to use the AA or the A. So
Right.
I can see what they were doing. So you can see here the increment is 5,000. So if we're
Okay.
starting from a net purchase price on the competing offer of 455,
Mm-hmm.
we have an escalation amount of 5,000.
Okay.
We don't have any credits to buyer, and we don't have to deduct any credits to seller. So the price on this escalation is 460,000.
Okay. And
So it's
then,
really, it's only 5,000 more than the other one, but we don't have to worry about repairs or anything. And what they're putting down, they're putting a ton of skin in the game.
mm-hmm.
And then, if it comes in lower, they have 20,000 extra down to bring in.
Okay.
So this is the best offer that I would suggest that we talk to the seller about.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop it in like if we were the listing agent, Jerry K. So if you want to go ahead and let me share my screen,
Okay, perfect.
and I'll go ahead and pop that one in. Let's see. So again, we're talking about this property on Radiance Boulevard East, and Shannon said, make sure it doesn't get submitted. So I wouldn't buy a second house. So let me go ahead and get that email. So I've got it in my inbox. First I've got to download it into just a document on your computer. So I just want to go in and grab it real quick. It came with a love letter too, and this is really good. You guys need to be better at writing, not so much bullet points, because you can make sometimes mistakes, but just really selling your offer. So on behalf of my client, Shannon Hall, I'm pleased to present the following offer for your listing. I always use the subject line. I use the address in the subject line. And then I'd like to introduce myself, my client, and our offer. I'm Rochelle Wilhite. You guys can take some of this language if you want. We are a full service real estate brokerage. I have many years of experience in the local real estate market. We believe in the collaborative approach of doing real estate and see myself as a consultant. I leave nothing to chance. Once we get under contract, I will personally attend to the details of the transaction, from meeting the appraiser with a complete package of comparables and recent upgrades in hand to counsel my buyers about not changing anything in their financial status. I look for solutions and always focus on the finish line. If you like some of these lines, you can take them and kind of make your own letter. I would highly recommend you do something. So, because if you're submitting a lot of offers, most likely you need some sort of good intro email to attach your offers. Then I'd like to kind of talk about the buyer. Shannon Hall is the wonderful buyer. She knew the home in Radiance was the right home for her the minute she stepped through the door. So if your buyer doesn't do a love letter, you certainly have nothing wrong with submitting a little bit more background about your client's worthiness. Be careful though that you don't say anything about their race or their the demographics or anything like that. That's against the law. So just be careful on that. But I did say she's an experienced home buyer. There's nothing wrong with that, and is prepared to do what it takes to make this home her own. She works downtown Seattle and Tacoma, so she knows it's very close to I-5, which is a huge plus. We've looked at numerous homes, but she absolutely fell in love with this home, and her parents are willing to support her in the endeavor. She has saved money for her down payment and additional funds. Again, this is just kind of giving you some extra color as a listing agent. This is good to know so that you could kind of prop this one up ahead maybe of the other cash offer. She saved money for her down payment, and her preferred lender will be contacting you shortly. I spoke with the lender. Please let us know what we need to do to make our offer more competitive. If we are close to another offer, please give us a chance to be the winning offer. I see that a lot in some of these little love letters that are coming from the agent. If you select Shan's offer, it will close. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've gone above and beyond to make sure that we can get this home for her. I look forward to a favorable response. Call or text me with questions. I'm standing by. The brokers who are working late at nights or in evenings or really spending some time and communicating well with the other agent usually have better success at not having to write as many offers. So once I get this, then I download it into my files or into my documents or wherever you save your stuff on your computer. And I am I am required to make sure that I don't want to include, if there was a Form 17 or some of these other attachments, I don't want to save that. I don't want to have this sign anything that's like documents that are, maybe it's a buyer agency agreement, Jerry Kay. I mean, we don't want to send that to the seller. That's just, just in the interest of making sure it's very clean or mutual. We just want the aspects of the contract. The Form 17 should be separate. And the escalation, the other offer correct should be separate. Is that right, Jerry Kay? The one that's compete?
No, actually, I mean, if you're going to use a competing offer, you have to submit the whole competing offer at the time. And if you don't, if you even send it an hour later, it doesn't count. So
Really?
you have to package the competing offer. If you are going to escalate, you have to package it together and send it over together, not an hour later, not the next day when somebody requests it. You need to send the whole thing over.
Do you want it packaged then in the same document package? Do you think that would be the best way to go about training brokers?
That would be great. And then it won't get lost.
Yeah. So then we'll go into our transaction desk.
Take out any of those like receipts for, the law of agency. That's really between the firm and the client. They don't need to see that either. Or if you have it attached, the 7-8 pages, we don't want this thing to be 65 pages. So that kind of ticks people off sometimes.
Right. Okay.
What I like about her email, you could tell that they're going to be easy to work with and very hands-on and into it. This other offer, all they said was, "Good evening. Attached you'll find Mr. and Mrs. Hall's offer for your home. If you have any questions, please let me know. $445 cash, 20 earnest money, 1-day inspection. If you have questions, let me know. Talk with you soon." So you could tell the difference in who you're going to be dealing with. And I'd really rather deal with somebody that's really going to work with me.
And detailed, I would say too, that knows that they're going to be basically doing a lot of the hard work for you, right, Jerry Kay? With the appraiser, I mean, that's pretty amazing too. So as far as this goes, you're in the dashboard. You can create the transaction, which will get you all of the forms. Maybe if you had to do 35Rs or Form 40s and all of that, you might want to go that route. Or you can just go into start signing. Either one works. So a lot of you ask, what should I do? That's the difference between the two. So I'm going to just go right into my transaction. So I use the create transaction. And then there is a button when you're in the transaction that says signings. So you'll click on signings. And then what you'll do is you'll click add. You'll label it. And I usually label it mutual acceptance. And if I have the clients, I think it's Lee and I messed this up. It's okay. It's fake. Lee and Hall. So I kind of put their name so that that's the label of the document once it's done and signed. So I label it correctly. And then what I go in here and do is I create my participants. So that would be the seller. And I'm just going to kind of make this up here as I go. So Young Bae Kim is the actual seller's name. And oops, I don't have an email address. I got to add their email address. I click OK. You always get an error message when you don't have an email address. So I'll just use my email address here. And just a reminder, we're using support at bestchoicerealtylaw.com as the firm email address. That's where everything gets tracked. So I'll go in there and delete this from our exercise. But just remember, all of your mutual accepted deals need to go to support at bestchoicerealtylaw.com. So that Jerry Kay and I can review them and make sure that we have all of the pieces. That is our duty as your managing broker, to make sure that we can define when mutual acceptance was and that you have all the appropriate documents that go along with it. So then we go to documents and then we go ahead and select. We don't want any of these offers or all these forms. No, we don't want that. So we got to close. And instead we want add documents and we want to upload a file right here because we saved it on our computer. So we go ahead and grab let's see, I got to remember where I put it. My downloads, I believe. Offer finance with the escalation. And then the other one was seller's market. I think it was that one. So we'll go with that one and that one. So we're going to use the escalation and we're going to use the competing offer as the one that was the 455, right, Jerry Kay?
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to bundle all of them together. You want to make sure that when you upload it, that you put the one that is the competing one, you want that at the back, right? You want the winning one on the front, the first few pages, and then the one in the back. That's kind of the way I would organize it, I think. It's going to take a bit
Be
of
very
time.
careful. Don't make sure you don't find the competing offer when you start scrolling back through and placing all the initials and stuff.
Yeah. And as we kind of go through this, if, the part that takes the time is just dragging and dropping. I know that's annoying for people. DocuSign is a lot better to use. But unfortunately, I still use Transaction Desk because you get a bit more control and you want to make sure it's done right. So the forms are also uploaded with Transaction Desk. So if you are going through, it's going to take its little time. My goodness, 40%.
A lot of pages.
I know. Is there anything else on the escalation that we needed to talk about while it's uploading? I think.
Well, I mean, what's kind of different now, aside from like what I told you, which is very, very, very important, that if you have to send the complete copy, no marking and blacking out, whiting out names. The other side is supposed to be able to actually contact that buyer if they so choose to say, hey, did you really offer this amount? So no blacking out of names, but you do need to include the whole thing. Otherwise, it's not an escalate. It's not proper. It's not escalated. And you want to make sure that the offer expiration date wasn't expired, because they could come back and say that that was not a bona fide offer to use to escalate. And then now the new form, it gives the buyer, there's a new section down below. It's a notice to seller of new purchase price. So if you do your calculations, you're like, hey, I came up with 462 or something different. So the buyer gives notice, and then the seller has to respond. If the seller does not respond, then it's whatever the notice that the buyer gave, what they calculated, that's what the new one will be. So it's very important that you guys are watching the timelines on this, because it's all new.
All right, keep talking, Jerry Kegs. I'm going to do dragging and dropping. I'm doing the drag and drop dance.
So yeah, and there's a new, and then it's a new form too. It's form 35EN. So it's an escalation addendum notice. So that's the new form that you would use, which we haven't had that before. There's lots of new forms going on now. So we encourage you to take training with the MLS with Justin Haig. It's $20 for clock hours. It's 3 hours. And then I've taken a class with Annie Fitzsimmons with the Washington Realtor Association, if you can find time to do that. They each teach differently. So, I don't think it hurts. I know that's 6 hours of your time to watch if you were to take both classes, but they each, their slides are different with information. They talk differently. And so I found that I learn, you can always take nuggets away from each of them that help. So
I'm at the point where we're doing the worksheet. So as a listing agent, we do need to fill this section in on number 4. So purchase price of the competing offer, or a lot of people forget to read this part, right, Jerry K? Or the maximum purchase price of the competing offer. We made this exercise
because we made this exercise really easy.
But if you had, like, say 3 escalations, you could use the cap price or the maximum purchase price, correct? And that would be what goes there. So if we had another offer that was, say, 470, then it would, their cap price was like beating any other offer by 5,000 up to 470. We could use that as our competition. A lot of people have questions about that. So just make sure you read that and that you look at the other offer. Maybe it is better if it's an escalation. Some people have messed up on that. They've actually sold the house for $10,000 less because they didn't read this very important section here. So this one's easy though. We did what, 455 was the other offer?
455, yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure we put the dots like that so it's filled in correctly. I think that would be the right thing to do. And then less credits, that's just 0 because there's no credits. So that's just 0. And then the plus credits, That's 0 as well.
0, and that's new, you guys. So that line is new.
So then that would be, it says plus credits. Okay, so the competing offer net price, that's still
$455.
okay, and then plus the escalation, which is,
Our offer was escalating by 5,000.
so I just put 5, oops, not 4, 5. I'm gonna stretch the little thing out, dang it. This little guy, come on. There we go. And then plus credits from the buyer to this
No
offer.
seller credits on this one either.
So it's 0.
And no offer to pay any of the seller's closing costs. So that was pretty easy. So we're at 460.
So we just put in 460. And again, this is not a counter offer. So this is important to know. This is not a counter offer. We're just filling out the worksheet. And then basically what this means is we're selling the house for 460, but they have the right to, if it's incorrect, buyer will deliver the notice to the seller of the fact within 3 days. And if we provide evidence, it's 2 days to give notice of termination. So
But
that's,
if that other agent doesn't send over the competing offer at the same time, say you're the listing agent in this situation, and they don't send it over, it's like, do you call them up and say, hey, you forgot to send your competing offer? Would you advise them that they forgot? Because some, Annie, maybe you don't want to.
that
Because
might be a phone call to you, Jerry Kay. I'm too nervous.
yeah, you just move forward with the transaction, and then somewhere along the line, you give them the bad news that it never escalated. I have a feeling we're going to have some of those hard conversations and realizations, and some pretty ticked off sellers, or buyers, because it didn't escalate, and the seller thought it escalated. And so you got to be very, very careful.
And so we did go ahead and fill out the FERPTA. We forgot to do the FERPTA. So they're not. So we just drag and drop the checkbox over, and then we have her sign. A lot of people said don't fill in personal information here. That can be done at escrow. But the home address, if it's different than the FIFE, that you'd want to fill in the address. If it's the same, it's fine. That was inferred. And then, so nothing will need to be signed right here. And then, as we discussed earlier, we put the competing offer at the back, and we will not sign the competing offer. We just have to include it in order to get mutual acceptance and trigger automatically, right, Jerry Kay, the 35E that we have here.
Yes.
Okay. So then once we're done dragging and dropping, doing that dance, we click next and we finish out the signing. So that's it. Jerry Kay, was there any other questions or concerns? I thought we went through that fairly swift.
That was great. I mean, we've had a couple of these classes, and there's several of our agents that are very, very nervous about the escalation clause, and you should be, because if you do it wrong, you could be harming your client. So there is a trick, so to speak, that you can do, is by yes, it came with an escalation, but you could have a conversation with the other agent. You could send them over that other offer, like in an email, and just say, hey, take a look at this. Do you agree that this would have escalated to 460? They go, yeah, I see, that would have escalated to 460. Then you say, okay, can you rewrite your offer to 460 and remove the 35E?
Yeah, and that can still be done, right? I mean,
so then you don't have to show, you don't have to put you've already sent the competing offer to them so that they could look at it, but then you're crossing it off, and then it's 460, whatever you guys cross off and put on there. And if you don't use a 35E, then you can't, that escalation worksheet, if you did it wrong, it's now null and void. It's not part of the contract anymore.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, as the listing agent, I wouldn't counter back removing the 35E, because then that's a counter.
And it requires initials, and it requires
that. And maybe they got their eye on this other house that, they're like, if this one doesn't, and that one came open, I'm going to go, and you thought you had somebody on the hook, and they changed their mind. So.
Well, very good. Well, that's it for today. Thank you very much, Jerry Kay. That was very informative. Talk to you guys.
Thank you.